Hello and welcome, everyone. We'll be beginning our session on IT courses and PR pathways really shortly. Today, I have here with me Miss Gunjan Malik, who's a registered migration agent with us at Aussizz Group Melbourne. She has more than 14 years of experience in the immigration consulting and case management roles. She's a compelling and eloquent presenter. She believes in empowering the student community with the right guidance and information that makes a difference in their journey in settling down in Australia. She especially has a knack of handling case complexities and developing such solutions as per the individual case scenarios. So you're in great hands today. Shoot all your questions relating to IT with regards to skill assessments. And I'll hand over to you now, Gunjan.
Thank you so much, Riddhi. Hello, everyone. My name is Gunjan, and I work as a registered migration agent with Aussizz Group in the Melbourne Collins Street office. Thank you very much, first of all, for joining us and taking time out to invest. You're going to invest your time today. I can promise you that. So I'm going to be speaking about the most common course that the students are studying, the most common courses that students want to study and come to Australia, or who are already studying in Australia and who want to change the course. So the information technology courses I'm going to be speaking about. I'm going to cover state sponsorships. I'm going to cover the main skill assessment authority that does the skill assessment for all the IT occupations. Plus, I'm going to be covering one of the common questions that I experienced during this post-COVID world is that what kind of state should I be living at? Like, where should I go? Should I move state? Should I move to a regional area? Or should I stay in Melbourne or should I stay in Sydney? So I'm going to try and address as many questions as I can as well. However, I'll be able to address your questions after the session. First, I'll go through some of the slides in my presentation that will answer most of your questions you have in your mind. So if you have your friends and your colleagues studying or who want to study the course, please invite them in the session as well. So it's going to help them in any of the IT related course that they are studying or they want to study. I'm going to share my screen now so we can start the presentation. And as I mentioned that I'm going to be answering the questions. I'll try to cover as many questions as I can after the session at the end of the 10-15 minute session. So I think my screen is visible now. All right, let's start. So this session is regarding the permanent residencies pathways with IT occupations. So my first slide basically covers most common IT occupations. Now, these occupations are divided into the medium-term list and the short-term list. I've also put some of the occupations in bold. The reason being that some of the occupations have been added into the PMSO list, which is the priority migration skilled occupation list. To keep it clear, the PMSO list is only for the employer-sponsored nomination and the employer-sponsored visas. That means that when they talk about the PMSO, that means that these occupations take the priority over the other occupations. The medium-term occupations, which are the most common and most prominent in the areas of study with the students are currently studying or they have completed studies, is analyst programmer, chief information officer, computer network and systems engineer, developer programmer, business analyst, ICT security specialist, multimedia specialist. They have added multimedia specialist in the PMSO list, that is the employer-sponsored priority list. Software and programmers, application programmers, and software engineers and system analysts. These are the core main prominent areas that most of you would have studied or studying. Now, the other part of the list is the short-term skilled occupation list. Most of the offshore candidates, now when I talk about all the occupations, state sponsorships, and the quota as well, I'll be talking about. So these are the skilled occupation programs also for the offshore candidates, not only for the onshore candidates. So if you have completed your studies outside Australia and you're looking to migrate to Australia, and you have got a qualification in IT, whether it's diploma, degree, postgraduate, or graduate diploma, you might be eligible for the program for permanent residency. Now, with the short-term list, we cover database administrators, people who have completed a diploma, or in network, diploma in networking, network administrator, network analyst. One of the very common occupation is systems administrator, web administrator, and web developer. Now, with the state sponsorship list, which is the STSO, the name itself says the short-term list. So this only you can be applied through the state, not the independent. So that's the difference between the medium term and the short term. I'm going to go to my next slide, which talks about the skill assessment. Now, all these occupations, I'm going to my first slide, is that all these occupations are assessed by an assessing authority, which is the Australian Computing Society. I will talk about the requirements. I will brief you guys that what requirements I'm going to be talking about. So one area is if you have an Australian qualification. The second area is if you don't have an Australian qualification, if you have an overseas qualification. This also covers the students who are studying here a different course. For example, if you're doing a bachelor's of management or a master's of management, however, you did your bachelor's of IT in outside Australia, in any country specifically, not specifically, but any country. So I'm going to be covering the Australian Computing Society skill assessment with your Australian qualification, your overseas qualification, bachelor's degree, diploma, or postgraduate diploma. The ACS, which is the assessing authority, first is the people who are studying here, the students who are studying here. If you have a relevant Australian qualification, for example, if you pick analyst programmer, if you have got a master's of programming or master of software or bachelor's of software engineering, then if you hold a relevant Australian qualification, you need 1 year of post-study work experience. Now that post-study work experience you will be doing after your completion of your course. The ACS for a skill assessment, they're not going to accept if you have your work experience before qualification, especially if you want to use your Australian qualification. When we talk about skill assessments, you need to keep in mind that skill assessment is mandatory for any PR pathway. If you want to apply for your 189, 190, 491, you cannot just straight away jump to the state sponsorship or visa. Skill assessment is a must. That's one of the common questions I experience, that can I apply for a state sponsorship, but you don't have a skill assessment, so you cannot apply for state sponsorship or 189. So if you don't have a 1 year work experience, the alternative is that you do your professional year program. The professional year program, the Australian Computing Society accepts as an alternate to the post-study work experience. So either you need to have a 1 year work experience, or you need to complete a professional year program, which you will be doing on your 485, which is one of the most common visas that students lodge after their graduation, after their 2 year study. So that's called the 485 post-study visa. So that's a 2 years visa. You get an opportunity to complete a professional year program that gives you extra 5 points. Plus, it adds to get the skill assessment as well. Now, another common question I get from clients is that I've got 1 year work experience. Do I need to do professional year program? So my answer is not for the skill assessment. However, it does give you a benefit of extra 5 points, which adds to your expression of interest. So the higher the points, the more chances you have of invitation from the state or an independent invitation as well. All right, so this was the part with the Australian qualification. Now, I'm going to talk about the overseas qualification. Now, this will cover the students who hold IT qualification outside Australia, or they have completed in Australia. Why I keep saying about outside Australia as well, that a lot of people think that they have studied bachelor's of IT in overseas. They cannot use their degree to be assessed as from the ACS. So And you can have as many number of skill assessments as you want. It's not that if you've studied your bachelor's of management or bachelor's of marketing or a bachelor's of accountancy. So if you have got a skill assessment as an accountant from CPA, that doesn't mean that you cannot get another skill assessment using your overseas degree. So I would want to uh, encourage students who have got an overseas qualification to speak to me, and then I can check their assessment as well. Now, with the overseas IT qualification, if you hold a bachelor's, there are two sides to the bachelor's. If you have a bachelor's which is related to your occupation, I'm going to pick analyst programmer as an example during my presentation, so it's easier for everybody to understand. If you hold a bachelor's of science in programming and specialized in programming, so you could be assessed as a analyst programmer. However, you need 2 years of work experience in the last 10 years. So if your qualification is related to your nominated occupation, then you need 2 years of work experience in the last 10 years, or 4 years of uh, work experience anytime in the past history, not necessarily in the last 10 years. The other part is that if you have a bachelor's degree, which is not related to your nominated occupation. So if you hold a degree that is not a if you hold a degree that is not related to programming or IT, then you need 4 years of work experience anytime in the past work history, not necessarily 10 years. So there are a lot of people overseas who don't have IT degree, but they do end up in like a really good roles, a highly relevant IT related roles. Even if they don't hold a degree or just a diploma, you're still eligible to get a skill assessment, which is this first step to the permanent residency. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, but I'm going to cover this and then I'm going to get to the questions later. Okay, so going to the next slide, I'm going to touch base a little bit about, because the heading says ICT major. Now, another most common question is that the students get confused is that what is ICT major and what is ICT minor? There's a huge difference between the ICT major and the ICT minor. That is based on the subjects that you have studied. It is very, very relevant to identify whether your occupation falls in major or minor, because that assesses how much work experience do you need to be assessed in your nominated occupation. So this is regarding the ICT major. Now I'm going to go to the ICT minor part. This is again regarding the overseas IT qualification. If your subjects, going back to the ICT major, I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, that how you assess that it is ICT major is that 33% of your subjects have to be relevant to IT. So for example, if you had 12 subjects in your bachelor's, so 33% of those 12 subjects, around 6 or 5.5, so it should be relevant to the IT. So that is considered ICT major. Now, when we talk about ICT minor, if your subjects is 60% of that 33%, it can get confusing, but if you have a qualification, I can check that for you, whether it's ICT major or minor. If your overseas qualification is ICT minor, that means lesser subjects are related to IT. If you hold a bachelor's degree that is related to your IT qualifications, software programming or analyst programmer, then you need 5 years of experience in the last 10 years. So bachelor's degree qualification related to the nominated occupation, you need 5 years. This is for people who have got overseas qualification. You could also be eligible that if you hold an overseas IT degree and you're here on a work visa, or you're on a 4A to employer sponsored visa, and you don't have a skill assessment. So you have the opportunity to get the skill assessment based on your overseas IT qualification and your Australian work experience plus your overseas work experience. Experience can be anywhere. It doesn't matter in which country you have got work experience. Now, with the bachelor's degree, if your qualification is in ICT minor and your qualification is not related to the nominated occupation, you need 6 years of work experience anytime in the past history. There's a benefit in that 6 years because it doesn't matter when you had that work experience. If you hold a bachelor's degree which is not closely related to your programming nominated occupation, you can have 6 years of experience, and then you are eligible to apply for the skill assessment. Now, coming to the overseas qualification again, if it's ICT major, and you have a diploma, there are a lot of people who do not hold a degree overseas, and they hold a diploma only, like a diploma of IT or diploma of programming, depending on what you have done. But the instead of degree, they hold a diploma or an advanced diploma. Even in Australia, if you have done a diploma, advanced diploma, you are still eligible. This is particularly to the overseas qualification. If you've done a diploma or an advanced diploma and your qualification is related to the nominated occupation, when I say related to the nominated occupation, it means that if you are getting assessed, if you want to get assessed as, for example, in computer network and system engineer, then your diploma should be, your subject should be networking. That's what I mean when I keep saying closely related. If you have done a diploma of networking, and you want to be assessed as a computer network system engineer, hold an overseas diploma or advanced diploma, you need 5 years of experience. So here it says 5 years of relevant experience in the last 10 years. So with your closely related, you need 5 years. If your diploma or advanced diploma is not related to the nominated occupation, for example, you've done your diploma of management or advanced diploma of management, and you got an opportunity to work with a company anywhere in the country as a network administrator, and you've got 6 years of experience, Australian Computing Society is more than, you may be eligible to apply for the skill assessment as a computer network and system engineer with 6 years of work experience if you hold a diploma which is not related to your occupation. All right. So I'm going to go to my next slide, which is going to talk about, again, overseas qualification, which is non-ICT. So diploma with no IT the subjects, and with any diploma you need 6 years of experience. Now there are people who don't hold any qualification at all. You don't hold a diploma, you don't hold a degree, or you don't hold a master's or a bachelor's, but you have 8 years of work experience anytime in the past work history. You can get an RPL as well. RPL is the recognition of prior learning. If you have 8 years of experience, 10 years, more than 8 years of experience, you can get a certificate from a college in Australia to assess, they will assess that your work experience is equivalent to a diploma degree or advanced diploma, not a degree, but a diploma or an advanced diploma level. So they will give you a certificate, and then the ACS recognizes that certificate with 8 years of experience, and then you may be eligible to apply for the skill assessment. All right. Now I'm going to talk about the visa options. To recap, we spoke about the most of the prominent occupations like the developer, programmer, software engineer, computer network system engineer, ICT security specialist, in the medium term and in the short term. So all these occupations, you are eligible to apply for these visas. When I talk about the medium term and short term list, in the medium term, if your occupation falls into the medium term, you are eligible to apply for the 189, which is the skilled independent visa that you don't need to rely on any state to sponsor you. You can be independently apply for your expression of interest after you get the skill assessment. You can apply for 190, which is the state-sponsored visa, which is the most common visa nowadays, that different states have their own list of occupations. All states have their own requirements. New South Wales have different requirements. South Australia has different requirements. Victoria has different requirements. So you need to fulfill the particular state criteria, and you need to fall into that category to apply for a 190 nomination through state. The 491 can be a state or a family sponsored visa, but it leads to pathway to permanent residency. The 491 is a provisional visa for 5 years. It is not a permanent residency. The 491 is for 5 years, where you need to live in that state for 3 years. and work there, and then you can lodge your 191, which is a permanent residency. You could be eligible for employer-sponsored visa. So the top three are the skilled migration programs, the 189, 190, and 491. And the second step is the employer-sponsored visas, which is completely independent of the skilled migration. This is a separate visa category, which the department has for people who have the employers to sponsor them in their occupation, which is the 482, which is a temporary visa. It is not a permanent residency. However, it can lead to a permanent residency, which is the 186, depending on the your occupation, depending on which area you fall into, whether you fall into the short-term list or your occupation falls into the medium-term list. So depending on that, you will be assessed whether you're eligible for 482 or 186. The 186 is the employer nomination scheme again, and it is a permanent visa. I'm going to speak about the 186 a little bit more. The reason being that I have a lot of clients nowadays, the employers are sponsoring a lot of candidates on 186 and 482. If you have an employer who wishes to sponsor you, you need to first check whether are you eligible for being sponsored or not. Like, there are a lot of people who have employers who are happy to sponsor them, but your eligibility needs to be checked as well, because the nomination and the visa is based on your eligibility. The 482 has got 3 steps to it: the sponsorship, nomination, and the visa. Sponsorship is basically the company's eligibility. The financials of the company need to be shown, the profit and loss statement, the BAS. It's basically the company needs to be assessed from the department whether they are eligible to sponsor you or not. And then comes the nomination part and the visa part. The 186 is the employer nomination scheme. Again, it doesn't involve any sponsorship. It only involves the nomination and the visa. The 494 is again employer sponsored, like 491. However, again, it's a provisional visa for 5 years where you need to live and work in that company for 3 years and the state, and then it leads to the permanent residency. So I would want to encourage the students or employees who are working in the company, in the IT company. You can always have a chat with them. You speak to them. The IT is one of the most famous and very prominent area in industry. The jobs are there are a lot of jobs. The department is encouraging now to be a part of that program, because of the fact that, as you have seen, that the PMSO list, the priority migration skilled occupation list, they have added 4 to 5 occupations that are the business programmers, the computer network and system engineer, the system analyst. So I would definitely encourage everybody who are on that area in that specific IT sector to speak to the employers, because they're going to have the prioritized processing from the department of the nomination and the visa as well. Both are going to be prioritized by the department. The global talent visa, which the department introduced under the digital sector, if you fall under the digital sector, you are eligible to apply for the global talent program, which is one of the main aspects will be your salary, how prominent you are in your area, how prominent you are in your occupation, in your work experience. Are you recognized in your area? So global talent visa is also one of the areas where you could be eligible for if you're working under the digital sector. Now I'm going to speak about state sponsorship. So just to recap a bit, we spoke about 189, the independent program on all those IT occupations which are in the medium term list. Now, the ones occupations are on the short term list, you are eligible to apply only through the states. So which means that if that particular state is you fall into the category to apply through the state, then you can only apply for 190. So that's for the short term list. But that doesn't mean that people who are in the medium term list cannot apply for the state sponsorship. You also can apply for the state sponsorship. So the New South Wales falls into 2 categories. So one is the 190 requirements and other is the 491. As I explained, that the 190 is a permanent residency through state. You get extra 5 points as well. and the 491, which is the regional. So I'm going to speak about the New South Wales 190 pathway. First of all, again, you need to have a skill assessment. Without the skill assessment, you cannot apply for a skilled migration program. So ACS, who is the assessing authority, the first step is to do the skill assessment, and then you apply for your 190. So the New South Wales, they have their own list of occupations. So if you want to apply for the New South Wales 190 pathway, your occupation must be on the New South Wales occupation list. Now, these are the rules. These are the current rules. What are the rules now? I'm going to be speaking about all the requirements and what are the eligibilities based on what are the current rules. It keeps changing, and then obviously we keep updating our Facebook page, and you can also subscribe to our Aussizz group on the Facebook page to receive regular updates, because the rules keep changing and the states keep changing their eligibility as well. So the current rule for the New South Wales requirement is that your occupation should be on the New South Wales list. You must be residing in New South Wales. There is no particular time frame that you should be residing for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. However, it has to be reasonable. Like, it's not that you are living in New South Wales, but you don't have any documents to prove, you don't have any bills, you don't have any lease agreements to prove that you are living in the state. No, you have to be residing in the state for a reasonable period, and you should have enough documentations. With New South Wales, the higher points you have, the higher chances you have of being invited through New South Wales. In an invitation round, like I said, with New South Wales, the New South Wales ranks their candidates by the points. Somebody who has got 95 points as analyst programmer will have more chances of being invited through New South Wales as compared to somebody who has got 85 points or 90 points. So the New South Wales ranks their occupation on the basis of points, English proficiency, and the number of years of work experience. When I talk about the number of years of work experience, if you have Australian work experience for 1 year, it gives you 5 points. 3 years, 10 points. So accordingly, the more years of experience you have, then the more points you get. So New South Wales do have a bit of that. The more people, the more experience you have, the more points you have, the more English proficiency you have more chances of invitation. So I would encourage the clients, the students who are living in New South Wales or who are in Victoria or any other state and who are eligible for the New South Wales, you might maybe plan to relocate to New South Wales. However, I do advise that you get in touch with us and discuss the requirements first without just going and relocating. So 190, these are the requirements for the 190 New South Wales. Keep in mind their occupation must be in the list. They have their separate list. Now, the 491 pathways. 491 is regional. It's not the metro. So New South Wales have a lot of participating regions like Orana, Southern Inland, Northern Inland. They have 6 or 7 participating regions. Keep in mind that all the states have their own list and all the states have their own requirements. However, this is the most common requirement of the regional area. So if a state, for example, Orana, your occupation has to be in that list. So if you're staying in New South Wales regional area, you have to check whether your occupation falls into that state list or not, because all states have different lists because there are different participating regions. Now, with the 491, you must be residing in the New South Wales regional area for 12 months. So minimum 12 months, you must be in the New South Wales regional area to be eligible to apply for the 491 pathway. If you are living there, that's fine. You are eligible to apply, but keep in mind your occupation should be in the list. New South Wales also has a pathway of the graduates there. So if you have done your bachelor's or master's degree in New South Wales, not necessarily IT, you are eligible to apply for the New South Wales 491 pathway. Again, keep in mind that your occupation should be in that state list and you should complete at least 2 years of qualification. So your qualification must be at least 2 years. in the regional area. So you might be eligible for the 491 pathway. So I'm going to talk about the Victoria, because Victoria has majority of the graduates and programmers, business analysts, computer network, ICT security specialists. Victoria has a majority of the candidates studying IT here or who want to study IT. I'll talk about the chart as well. I've got a couple of things to show you guys that which states have the majority number of students studying in IT sector. With Victoria, as most of the people are already aware that due to the COVID, the Victoria only nominating candidates in the health sector, medical, life sciences, agriculture, or digital. So with 190, which is a permanent residency, if you're working and living in Victoria for the last 6 months, not in any occupation, it has to be in your occupation. So if you want to apply as a business analyst and you're working in Victoria as a business analyst for the last 6 months, you may be eligible to apply for 190. However, you should be only working in the critical sector. It doesn't mean that you have to be working as a nurse. What it means is that if you are working as a business analyst for a hospital, that means that you are performing work in an area which is related to critical or health sector. So you are eligible to apply for Victoria 190. With the 491 Victoria Regional, instead of 6 months, they have cut it down to 3 months. So if you're working in your nominated occupation for minimum 3 months and you are living in the regional area for 3 months, then you may be eligible to apply for Victoria 491. Say similar to 190, Victoria is only nominating candidates in health, medical, research, life sciences, agri-food, and digital. We are hoping that in the financial year, like maybe in July, after 30th of June, let's see in July, first or second week, if Victoria comes up with any changes or they remove this criteria, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are working in their nominated occupation and they are not able to apply because of this particular criteria that you can only apply in health, medical research, or life sciences. So I'm going to talk about the Canberra as well after Victoria. So with Canberra has it's everybody knows it's the capital. They're trying to attract as many candidates, graduates. They have their own matrix. ACT Canberra points doesn't rely on the Department of Home Affairs points. To apply for the ACT Canberra, again, whether you're applying for 190 or 491, you need to have a skill assessment, work experience, or professional year program, and then you have to check whether you're eligible to apply for ACT Canberra or not. So the 190, which is a permanent residency, with the ACT metrics, if the higher points you have, the higher chances you have to be invited. Your occupation, if for example, if you're applying for a business analyst, if your occupation is on the critical skill list, you have very high chances to get invited through ACT, because if your occupation is on the critical skill list, it gives you 20 points apart from the extra other points as well. So with 190 ACT, if your occupation is on the critical skill list, you need to have 6 months of full-time work experience in any field, or TFN, or 1 year on ABN. It doesn't matter, but you are eligible to apply for the 190 ACT pathway. The ACT was used to be quite strict in that they used to only invite graduates who have studied there. However, they have been recently very flexible with their matrix. And if you are working in ACT and you have not graduated there and you have your occupation on the critical skill list, I would encourage you to apply for the ACT skilled migration pathway. Now, ACT also has their 491 category, as all states have 491 category, even ACT has their 491 category. So your occupation has to be in the critical skill list and plus 3 months of part-time or full-time experience in any field on TFN or 1 year on ABN, it doesn't matter. However, ACT, like any state, they encourage candidates and they only invite people who fall into minimum 65 points. So recently we had a lot of invitations. Like I said, ACT is independent. Department of Home Affairs is independent. So with Department of Home Affairs, when you lodge your skill assessment and EOI, the point system is higher. However, with ACT matrix, the point system is not that high. With 491, if you are granted, keep in mind that you have to live in that state for minimum 3 years. So you can't get your 491 and change states. You have to live in that state for minimum 3 years to be eligible to apply for permanent residency. I'm going to talk about the South Australia state nomination because there are a lot of graduates there. These state sponsorships are not only for the onshore candidates in Australia, the people who have studied outside Australia who hold an IT qualification outside Australia are also eligible for skill assessment and the state nomination programs as well. However, at the moment, most of the states are only inviting onshore candidates. There are states who are inviting offshore candidates as well. So I encourage people to get their skill assessment done. So whenever the state nominations open, whether it's Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, or South Australia, you have a chance to apply ASAP for your state nomination program for 190 or 491, whatever you're eligible for. With South Australia, again, we have two different pathways. All states have their own list of occupations. So how South Australia has divided their nominations is that one is for the graduates pathway, the people who have graduated there. Doesn't matter which occupation. If you have graduated from South Australia, and if you have completed at least 1 year of study in South Australia, bachelor's or higher, and if you're working in your occupation in South Australia for last 3 months. So I would like to stress on when they say about the work experience for 3 months is that you can be working in your nominated occupation, that is like a business analyst, or in your closely related occupation. So I would like to give an example when I talk about closely related is that, for example, if you are working as a business analyst, you're applying as a business analyst, but your title says that you're working as a quality analyst. So what it means is that even if your title is quality analyst and your tasks are majority of a business analyst, because there are intermingled occupations, you could have mixed tasks, you are still eligible to apply for South Australia 190. With the residence pathway, if you are currently residing in South Australia and you're working in your nominated occupation or closely related occupation for last 18 to 24 months, you're eligible for 190. So South Australia basically also encourages candidates who are not graduated there, but they're working there as well. The 491 for the regional side, which is the provisional visa for 5 years. If you have graduated in South Australia and if you have completed 1 year of study in South Australia and you're working in your nominated occupation or closely related, like I gave an example of the quality analyst or the business analyst in South Australia for last 3 months, you are eligible for the 491 pathway. Yeah. Now, coming to the residence pathway as well. If you have not graduated from South Australia, if you are like, for example, if you have done your graduation in Victoria or Queensland and you got a job, you got an opportunity in South Australia, which is again a big state like Victoria. If you get an opportunity to work in South Australia, in your occupation, I'll take the same example of a business analyst or a quality analyst in South Australia for the last 6 to 12 months, you are eligible to apply for South Australia 491. All occupations, this is the general criteria, the basic criteria. Every occupation, different occupations, I'm sure you all have different fields, you're from different areas of IT. All occupations can have different requirements. So with South Australia, there are certain postcodes that are categorized into the outer regional South Australia. There's a list of postcodes. So if you are working and living in outer regional South Australia, they also have the eligibility to apply for the South Australia 491 pathway. You could use this opportunity. If you're on a temporary residency on a 485, you could use that visa as an opportunity to look for a job in a regional areas. And then, however, before you relocate to any area, I would recommend that you get advice through us. You can contact me and then we can plan your pathway accordingly, whether you should relocate or stick to that state where you're already working. Okay. Tasmania, as it's another popular state, there are a lot of people who relocate to Tasmania, but they don't have job. They're just relocating. So the reason why I'm saying is that there is a myth that I keep hearing from students that should I just go and live in a regional area? I said, no, I mean, you can't just like go and live in a regional area. You need to plan that what is going to be the outcome of if you just go and stay for 6 months in Tasmania. That's not going to help in any way. So you need to assess your situation accordingly, that what is my occupation, what are the requirements of that occupation, what are the 190 requirements, and what are the 491 requirements. So with Tasmania, there is a work pathway and there is a graduate pathway. If like I said, all states have their own list. Similar to that, Tasmania has their own list, which is called the TSOL list. If you are currently working in Tasmania for minimum 35 hours in the last 6 months, you are eligible to apply for 190. Now, this is the basic eligibility. That means you're eligible to apply for 190. Now, it's up to Tasmania how many seats they have, how much quota they have. The higher points you have, that's better. That's why I always encourage my students to work on their English, give NATI, try to gain work experience, do your professional year program, because every state encourages to and nominates the students who have the highest points. Tasmania also looks at the commitment to the state. So apart from this eligibility, they also see, do you have a family there? Do you have a job there? How much income you're earning? They don't list that on the website. However, with my experience, I can tell you that Tasmania looks at the commitment to the state a lot. Now, Tasmania is divided into the work pathway and the graduate pathway. Work is 6 months full-time in your nominated occupation. The graduates who have completed 2 years of qualification in Tasmania, you may be eligible to apply for 190, but you do have to provide a career plan, like you need to provide a Word document where you need to show the commitment to the state, what kind of jobs you will be looking for, have you already got a job, what is the potential of getting a job in Tasmania. So if you have done your bachelor's of software engineering, do you have any potential to get a job on Seek or through any website in Tasmania? And if you're not working in Tasmania, you will have probably very less chances to get invited then. So it is our job to assess if you are located in Tasmania or anywhere, whether you may be qualifying for that state or not. So now coming for the Tasmania 491, which is regional, you should be working in Tasmania for 6 months in any field. Some of the jobs they're not accepted, like the casual jobs, the food court, the petrol pump. If you're driving Uber or taxi, they are not acceptable. Preferably, if you're working in one of the nominated occupations, that is better for 491 pathway. The graduate pathway, you've completed at least 40 weeks CRI course. This is all for IT occupations I'm mentioning again for all IT graduates. If you have completed a 1 year 40 weeks course in Tasmania, has to be CRI course registered. You can apply for the 491 pathway. However, keep in mind that by completing a 1 year course, you would not have just high chances to get invited. To increase your ability, you need to find a job there as well. Now, Western Australia is another big state where I'm going to speak about the 190 requirements, at least 2 years qualification in Western Australia. Your occupation has to be in the graduate stream list and 6 months of work experience anywhere in Australia. Western Australia also has an option. If you don't have work experience, then if you have an employment contract, taking example of a business analyst, for example, or a closely related occupation, you are eligible to apply for Western Australia as well. Northern Territory is another state for the 190 pathway. If you have graduated there, if you have completed at least 2 years of qualification in Northern Territory, and you can demonstrate that you have made efforts to find a job in Northern Territory. You must have work experience as well. I mean, they don't require it, but it is not mandatory. However, if you have a job, you have very high chances to get the Northern Territory 190 pathway. Because they do have a work pathway as well, you have to demonstrate the employment, that the job that you will be getting. If you have a job offer, if it is a 12-month contract, then you have high chances of invitation for Northern Territory pathway. Similar to other states, Northern Territory also has the 491 pathway. The graduate pathway, you need to complete at least 2 years qualification in Northern Territory. And the work pathway, people who have not graduated there and have been living in Northern Territory. Like I said, I do have a lot of people saying that, can I just go and live in Northern Territory? I said, yes, you can go and live there. However, do you have a job there? Are you able to demonstrate that you will have potential to work there in your nominated occupation? So if you have any potential to work in the nominated occupation in Northern Territory, then only I would encourage to relocate. Otherwise, no. Queensland has got residency pathway for the working in Queensland list. You should be working in your occupation for the last 6 months. You must be able to demonstrate employment. It is available for further 6 months. So Queensland has their own requirements, like every state does. I'm going to skip through this slide so I can get to the questions as well. Queensland 491 pathway, you need to be working in Queensland again because it's a work pathway, the word itself says, and demonstrate that the job is available for the next 6 months, which you can take an offer letter from the employer if they're happy to give you. There's also a business pathway where you need to be operating the business for the last 6 months and the value should be at least minimum 100K. The business that you will be buying, probably, it should be in Queensland and must be 2 years old if you're planning to buy a business. Now, this is a slide which is going to a little bit give you an idea that which states have the most EOIs distribution in as a business analyst. Now, this particular slide is only for the business analyst. The first part is the EOI distribution for the 190, which means that Victoria and New South Wales has got the highest number of EOIs with the department. Now, these are the EOIs lodged. These are not the EOIs invited. This is only to give you guys a fair bit of idea that which state has got the most number of EOIs lodged for a business analyst. So Victoria, New South Wales, and for 491, again, Victoria, New South Wales has got the highest number of EOIs lodged. For system analyst and business analyst, both New South Wales and Victoria has got the highest percentage. Other states also have. These are the EOIs lodged with the department. Now, with the work side, New South Wales and Victoria has got the highest number of business and system analysts working in Australia. Queensland has got 12%. Other small states, because obviously the population is less as well, they have got different lesser amount of people working as a system analyst. With analyst programmers, New South Wales, Victoria has got 28%. These are the EOIs lodged. Developer programmers, different percentage I have addressed. This is just to give a little bit of idea to you guys that these are the EOIs, these are the states. For example, with the New South Wales, 33% has got the highest number of EOIs lodged because obviously they have more graduates there and people have relocated as well. Software engineer, again, has got, these are the EOIs distribution. These are the EOIs lodged with the department, Victoria, New South Wales. And okay, this is the work part. Now, where are the software application programmers work? This is just to give you a bit of idea where are most of the jobs in that location, in that profession, IT profession. New South Wales had a big jump of jobs when they changed their rules that you should be just living there. So New South Wales attracted most of the IT graduates with the 39% of jobs there. So New South Wales Victoria has got the highest number of IT working people. Security specialist is also one of the most popular occupations, and the EOIs in every state is, I have clearly indicated, the left is the 190, right is the 491. This is the EOI distribution. This is the EOIs lodged with the Department for the ICT security specialist. This is where the work part comes, that New South Wales and Victoria has got the highest number of ICT security specialists working in the state. Northern Territory, ACT, South Australia has got lesser because they're less the jobs, because of the jobs availability. Computer network system engineer is also similar to other IT areas and again, I get to the jobs. Most of the people in IT graduates are New South Wales and Queensland and Victoria. I'll try to get on the questions and I will try to address as much as I can. However, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on my mobile number. I'll leave my email address as well. And IT is a very, very broad area, and I would encourage that these are the general criteria for all the states and the state sponsorship and the skill assessment. However, I would like to assess each situation individually. I'll stop sharing my screen so I can thank you, and please leave a review for us as well if you love the session. I'll get on to the questions. Okay. So I'll skip through some questions because of the so much of chat. I'm not able to read the questions here. Okay, Hashini says, I failed once in VETSS skill assessment. Can I apply for other occupation by amending the work experience? Okay, Hashini, this is interesting. So what I would recommend is that I would like to check why your VETSS skill assessment failed. Most of the common reasons is that if you have not demonstrated that you were working in your closely related task or highly relevant task, but you can apply for other occupation, but keep in mind that you cannot completely amend your work experience letter, because in one company, if you were working, for example, as a chef, or VETSS does a lot of assessments. So I don't know your particular occupation, but you can get in touch with me. So if you are working as a chef in a company and you can't apply to ACS and say that I was working as a developer programmer, that's kind of a misleading information. However, I would like to have a one-to-one session with you so I can check what is your concern. But keep in mind that, yeah, but you can apply for multiple occupations. That's not a problem at all if you are eligible. Okay. Mai says, I have 90 points, will have +5 in November, ICT security and network assessment, living in Victoria. Should I stay or move? Mahi, with the 95, Victoria is at the moment only sponsoring candidates in the health critical digital sector. However, maybe you can wait till July. Let us check when is your visa expiring. So Mahi, I would like to check when is your visa expiring as well. So you can get in touch with me and I can check whether you should be relocating to any other state or not. With ICT, you can look at the New South Wales as well, which skill assessment. So ICT security network assessment. So computer network and system engineer, ICT security specialist is one of the most common occupations that people have got skill assessments in. If you are eligible for New South Wales, I would encourage, yes, you may be eligible, so you can apply for New South Wales. However, you must be living there. So you can get in touch with me and I can check. I'll try to scroll down the question. Bishwajit is asking that I've got computer application in India, now looking for master's options. I can do, I need to work experience relatively. If someone had a refusal of the tourist visa, that's okay. It doesn't stop you from being eligible for the skilled migration program. But depends, in the tourist visa, was there any incorrect or misleading information provided, or it was a refusal on a GTE or a genuine temporary entrant criteria. However, that is a separate visa. When you apply for a separate visa, the new visa is always assessed on its own independent merits. So I would like to assess the eligibility with overseas work experience, a bachelor's of computer application. Yes, if you have got work experience, then only you can apply. Like I said, with overseas IT qualification, you need to have minimum 2 years of experience, and that can be anywhere. Whether in Australia or outside, it doesn't matter. Mahesh is asking, living in New South Wales, finishing my professional year program. Sorry, by the time I read a question, I've got more questions coming in. But I will try to address as much as I can once my session is ended as well. If I'm not able to address this, please get in touch with me on the contact number, and I will contact you guys for a consultation. Bachelor's of Business Administration, Accounting and Finance. Can I do Master's in You can, because with the business administration, accounting and finance, you do not need to have like a massive IT background. However, Hashini, are you based overseas or here? I would like to check if have you done your bachelor's in business administration, whether in Australia or overseas? I can check that. Chaminda, sorry, Chaminda, I might have missed your question, but you can get in touch with me and I can discuss your case individually. Currently working, chances of New South Wales as a developer, programmer, analyst. With New South Wales, like I mentioned, that they assess candidates on the basis of the work experience, English, and how many points you have. So we can reassess your situation. If not New South Wales, if you're eligible for any other state, I can check that for you. Navjot, business in ERP system, working as an ICT business analyst, will complete a professional year. That's good. Living in Wollongong, what are the chances of 19491? New South Wales, if you are living in New South Wales regional area for the last 12 months, we can check the New South Wales regional 491 eligibility, because for 491 New South Wales, if you have a job offer and you have been living in a regional area for 12 months, you might be eligible for the 491 New South Wales. Yogesh, nowadays for programmer 186, it's really quick, Yogesh, because that's in the priority list. I would encourage you to apply for the nomination and visa if you are eligible for the 186. If you have an employer, definitely apply for it. I've applied for skill assessment based on my work. Will I be completing in professional year? Do I need to skill assessment again? No, you don't need to. Because if you already have a skill assessment, for example, as a developer programmer, and you don't need to apply for the skill assessment again, unless that skill assessment has expired. Unless it's no longer valid, you do not to apply for skill assessment, or if you're applying for a skill assessment in a different occupation. Mahesh is asking, currently living in New South Wales, I'll be finishing professional year, 2 years of work experience, bachelor's in IT. Okay, so you've got your skill assessment already, so I would need to check as well. I'm sorry, I'm not able to take all the questions, but I'm more than happy to address and speak to you individually. And please don't forget to leave a review if you really liked our session. And if you want to get updates, you can also go and like our Facebook page, Aussizz Facebook page. Right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate your time. And I'm sorry, I'm not able to cover all the questions in 1 hour. IT is a very broad category, and please get in touch with us so we can provide you further permanent residency services. Thank you so much, everyone.
For carrying out the session and like sharing so many insights regarding IT occupations, and also taking care of so many questions. Really appreciate your time and efforts. For the rest of you, I can see there's a lot of questions popping up. A lot of you are raising your hands. Don't worry, we have a dedicated Q&A session. We're going to end the conclave on a bang. So make sure that you join the session at 5 p.m. AEST today. Keep all your questions ready. We have 2 of our experienced migration agents from South Australia and NSW who are going to be joining. So make sure you sign up for that. We also have upcoming sessions later during the day today about employer-sponsored visas, partner visas, parent stream visas, state nomination. That's a massive session that's happening about 119, 491 programs. I've dropped the links for all of that in the comment section below. But if you're enjoying the conclave, like Gunjan said, please leave a review for us. It helps us improve. And, if there's any topics that we didn't cover during the conclave and you want more information on, we constantly do a lot of live sessions on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So drop in your suggestions. We'll cover those topics over there. Look forward to seeing you all at the remaining sessions. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Gunjan.
Thank you.